Welcome to episode number 3 of Training Amanda, where we follow Amanda, try and help her improve as she moves up the ladder. So we're going to be following along and seeing her progress. So we're going to look first at a game that demonstrates applying the lessons of last week to a game. So last week, we looked entirely on Chrono Boost, spending Chrono Boost. Now, by default, we suggested that Chrono Boost would be spent on probes unless you had a specific reason to use it on something else. But that becomes more difficult as the game moves on, and you don't really need to build probes the entire game. Just once you get up to the 60 to 70 mark as Protoss, maybe a little over that, and then you're good. So then you can move on to spending it on upgrades, and pretty much anything you want, just as long as you're spending it, because that's free time removed on building of things. So we're just going to follow this game and watch the Nexus energy throughout the entire game and see how much better it is than when we looked last week. So here we have, we're keeping it low so far. 30 down under 10. Once again, it's 25 energy per Chrono Boost. Now that we have 2 Nexuses, we'll jump back and forth. Once this is done, we'll be able to follow it too and see 12, 20, 20, both around 30 here. Used up Chrono Boost, used up Chrono Boost. And spending again. This one's getting a little high at 50, but there's a couple Chrono Boosts spent, and it gets used up once again. And we see it's getting a bit high once again. Actually gets over 60 there, but we do get it spent. Keeping it low over here. Again, over 60, but spent once again. Very good. Spent again. Keep it low. Keeping it low. Now a 3rd Nexus is coming up, so we'll be able to follow that in just a second. Energy very low on our 2 Nexuses here. This one is complete, but it's not hotkeyed right now, so its energy is not being used, but now it's hotkeyed. Okay, there we go. And we see the spending across all 3, very low, around 30 for each. Getting into the 40s and 50s now, but there are some Chrono Boost spent. That one gets up to 60 again, but then spent, and that's the game. And if we look at the end of the game, Chrono Boost levels, 32 out of 100, 10 out of 100, 31 out of 100. That is excellent. Not just the end, state of that much, because you could have been at 100 the entire game and then spend it, but keeping it under 70 the entire game, that is like near professional level, and that's not even an exaggeration. You will see Nexuses get to 100 out of 100 on occasion in professional games as well, particularly as the game gets later. As you get several bases and there are fewer things to spend Chrono Boost on, you'll see it neglected a bit, and that's unfortunate. So we're working on all levels, and on this one thing we're looking very, very good. Now, while I don't have a professional level replay to look at by comparison, I will open up just quickly a game that I played in High Diamond just to compare a Protoss player at that level as well. So just a second here, we'll see an Antigua game was down here. Here we go. So we're just going to follow the Chrono Boost on this Protoss player. Now, I don't mean to, it's nothing against this player, not that there's not saying that there's anything bad, not saying that he's playing badly. It's just by comparison of different levels that you can see. It's not that if someone's at a higher league than you, playing at a higher level than you, that absolutely everything is better. So here we actually see that the Chrono Boost did actually get up to 100. Now, if you're doing a timing attack, like if you're Chrono Boosting out Warp Gate, that could get up to that point, but that wasn't the case, so that was a little high there. Now we'll still follow it along as we have 2 Nexuses, 40, 40, getting up to 50 there, but that's it. Okay, spent it again. Over 70 now. This is a bit concerning. 80, 90. Oh, spent it. Okay. Now, if it gets to 100, we're now wasting energy because we're not accumulating any energy. 100, 100. Accumulating. 80, 90. Oh, that didn't quite get to 100. Still spent. This one is still at 100. We've got a lot of Chrono Boost saved up here. We do have a 3rd Nexus going down. So, you see here, it is now complete. It is now hotkeyed, so we can look at all 3. We've got 2 with 100. Now, there is a battle going on, so we could be Chrono Boosting out units, but are we? that's the big question. Are we chrono boosting out units? Well, no, we're at 100 out of 100 the entire way through here. 100 out of 100, 100, 100. There's some chrono boost being spent. So that is good to see that. Okay, and now it's accumulating again. Now, it can also be very hard to spend in these situations where you're being attacked and there's a lot of things going on, but that can actually be the best time to use Chrono Boost because you want upgrades out in time for the battle, you want more units reinforcing faster. So here we see 100, 100, 100 out of a player who is in a league much higher than Amanda right now. So she can look at the way she spent Chrono Boost in that last game. Very good. Like, can be very happy about that. But with that, we can actually move into our lesson for this week. Now, one of the things that I had talked to her about was play style. Not something in terms of lessons, but just what she feels comfortable with. And the play style that we locked in on and related it to planning, which was the first content of the first episode, was to play a defensive style, which should mean focusing on macro, getting up 3 bases, and building up a large death ball army. Now, the actual army composition was left purposely vague, just to not include too much, but that's what we're going to focus on this week, which is the death ball. What units do you actually want in that end game army? How do you want to win? And that's what we're going to look at first. So we're going to first look at, in terms of a game that demonstrates where the army composition was a bit lacking. So let me go ahead and bring that one up. Just a second here. Which one was that? I believe this was the replay we were looking for. So first we'll run through the game at high speed and then go back and see what happened within the game to cause a loss, see what went wrong. Scouting, going to see in here, doesn't get in time. So it's down now, going in for a 1 Rax fast expand, pretty standard, and in response we see a 1 gate fast expand out of Amanda, so very good on both sides. Straight up standard macro play. Here we do have a Robo coming down on top of 3 gates. So very safe standard play. We look over here on Clint's side. He has up 3 racks and is getting a factory. So you will be able to get a starport and get out medevacs. And medevacs are a little late compared to a really crisp, good timing, but not too bad. And we have a standard, bio medevac play that he can put some pressure on with. We're going to see if he does anything. And there he goes, pushing out with those medevacs. This is the timing where he can do damage. However, he's going to sit here in the middle of the map. So he just has control over the middle. Now looking in to get a drop. Moves in. Drops in, picks off a little, and then moves back. So didn't do a lot, but picking off that assimilator is kind of annoying as the Protoss player. Amanda moves out to take control of the center. Now remember, the plan is not to move out until we have our endgame composition. We have a full maxed army, so that's just clearing the watchtower, which is very good, and actually comes out quite ahead with the making up some ground, while as she had already been a bit behind in army lost. We see a big, scary army here out of Clint. If you look at the actual unit supply, the economy is fairly similar. However, our Terran player actually isn't on 3 base as of yet, killing this off. And it moves in. Looks like there's going to be engagement here. Backs up into a corner, gets shut down. That didn't go so well for our Protoss hero. There's the engagement, taking that, and that looks like it may be it, taking out that third supply, 148 to 80, trying to build up a final army to engage this with. Push in, but that is too much. and that's the game. So what happened here? The game was, while there were some early losses, the drop did a bit of damage back here. If we actually look, you know, mid to late game-ish, Amanda's looking pretty good. Got up some Colossi. Actually ends up with a fairly decent supply lead. She was ahead in economy for quite a while, having that third up first by quite a big margin. She could have had more probes. There wasn't constant probe production, as we see here. But the point in the game that was lost was the engagement. As we see the engagement over here at third, it's a little too far forward. This engagement went really poorly. Now, could Amanda have won this engagement? Yes, I believe she actually could have. There are a lot of Vikings here, so that makes, with a good engagement from the Terran, he can also win this battle. So it's not as if one side is overwhelmingly ahead. But the problem is, all Clint has to deal with, really, are these Colossi. There are a lot of Zealots here, Stalker, Sentry, which are good support units. A couple Immortals are nice to have mixed in there. But this army, without the Colossi, does not beat this Bio army. So the Colossi really need to do the damage, because these are the area of effect damage. The Bio is small and clumps up very easily, which does two things. One, it creates very high damage per second within the area, because all these units can all be firing at once because they clump up together. But the problem with clumping up together is that area of effect damage, such as what the Colossi do, hits a lot of units all at once, thereby doing a lot of damage. So if they can do that big damage, then this army can win. But if they don't, then they won't. So the positioning of this is really poor, because these Colossi are out in front. So we're going to see one get picked off, two get picked off without doing much at all. This one gets picked off. It was doing a bit of damage, but not so great. And then this one goes down before engaging. So really, the battle here is between the ground armies of both and one Colossi, which just isn't enough. So that's why this went one way. Now, if this was just a straight-up battle, it would have been much more even. But this could have been very one-sided for Amanda if she had a better unit composition. Well, what composition does she want? The main thing lacking in here are High Templar and Archons. You want to have Storm if it's a really late-game army. And this is why you need 3 bases, is to have this good mixture. In terms of a death ball for Protoss, it is relatively similar between all races. It is just a slightly different distribution of units between, depending. So it's this composition against all pretty much, just with some slight variations. You're going to have your gateway units, Zealot, Sentry, Stalker. You're going to want Colossi, High Templar, and Archons. So that is the primary mix. Now, against Terran, you're going to have a nice balanced mix of everything. The Zealots to tank fire and try and close in the distance on Terran, as well as using charge. You can actually, if you want to go into High Templar before Colossi, you'll get charged relatively early and get a lot more charge lots at first. And then later, you'll add in Stalkers to shoot down Vikings from picking off your Colossi. That kind of thing. Against the Zerg, a primary difference is that you're going to want a mothership in that endgame composition, because Vortex with Archons is just very, very strong, and the best and maybe only way to properly deal with a lot of Broodlords. But still, you're going to want Zealot, Stalker, Sentry in there, and Colossi. Against Protoss, Same thing. You're going to want Zealot